One of the best things I did for my marriage was to live alone. Welcome. You are listening to Relationship Renegade Weekend Edition.
Hi, everyone. Happy 4th of July. It's me, Mia.
You're probably getting ready for some barbecues and some, well, maybe, I don't know, barbecues, quarantine barbecues.
Of, groups no more than 10.
Yeah. And again, that all depends on what state you're in. So
That's true.
yeah, however it is that you're celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for bringing us along. This is Relationship Renegade with me, Dr. James Mercier, and my buddy Mia Terrazas. We are settling in. I'm not going to say adjusting. We're settling into our new format. And so just a quick reminder, you want to be looking for Relationship Renegade. All right. And so we'll have our weekend edition, and then we'll have our regular edition that airs on Wednesdays. All right. Today we wanted to tackle a unique topic. In honor of Independence Day, we wanted to look at independence. We wanted to talk about this whole thing of independence, but not in terms of country or anything, right? Because that's not what we talk about on this podcast. If you're looking for that, you're at the wrong place. This is not it. We want to talk about independence as it relates to relationships.
Yeah.
So we've said it before. Some people who listen to this podcast are married or dating, have partners, and some people are single. And there's some tension sometimes between people who are single and those who are not, right? Mm-hmm. But this podcast is for both of those groups and everyone in between, because what we're talking about is being independent. What is that? What does it look like? And in both contexts, whether you are single or married. Right, Mia?
Absolutely. I'm glad that we're talking about this because I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of independence with our single self and then our single self in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our single self in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Can't forget about them.
Yeah, say more about that.
Well, as maybe some of our listeners know, maybe you don't know, but I am single and I have been in a relationship before. Hi, everyone. But it's what I have found is when I'm in a relationship and I lose that sense of independence or my single self or some of the things that I, used to do when I was single, it kind of puts a little bit of a strain on my relationship with another person.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't think that's where you were headed, but I get it though.
Yeah.
I didn't think about the strain that it puts on the relationship.
Yeah, you go from kind of like it can go from kind of like a interdependency, if you will, to like a codependency. And when it goes to like this kind of codependency, it can get a little shaky.
Yeah. Now, the difference between interdependency and codependency is what? Just for the sake of our listeners.
Sure. Okay. So in an interdependent relationship, it means like you and your partner are good together, but you're also good on your own. And codependent is when you need that other person to be okay.
Yeah, big problems. And when they're not okay, now you're just a mess yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when that losing of yourself and kind of relying on your partner to fill that up for you puts
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that strain that I was talking about before onto that other person.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so it kind of shifts that dynamic from what it was to then potentially something harmful for the, future.
Mm. Now, some people will say, well, isn't this why you kind of get in a relationship? So that you have someone who um, you can lean on and can depend on when you're not able to for whatever reason?
So my thoughts on that are, for it's a different kind of support. We're talking about support versus codependency, which is that visceral need to then be okay, to have, to have somebody support you is, in my opinion, implying that you're also doing the work too. Um,
Okay. So support me as opposed to like take care of me.
exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Um, right. And then having someone responsible for your emotional needs is can be really taxing on
Mm,
that person and for you too, because if you're relying on someone to emotionally be there for to take on that emotional um, hardship that you're going through, and you're not taking any kind of accountability for it, then it can get dicey.
mm. So, it's funny, right? When people talk about independence within a relationship, we generally think about it on like the good stuff, the good side, the positive aspects. I am
Hmm.
who I am. I'm my own man, my own woman.
Hmm.
We don't necessarily think about the independence in like dealing with our own shit.
Yeah, I think that in some respects, as a single person, you're kind of in some ways forced to deal with that a little bit
Oh yeah,
more.
yeah. You have no choice.
Yeah, it's you're kind of you're stuck with yourself.
Uh-huh.
I hope you like that person.
Yeah.
But that's a good point too, because there are um, people that struggle with that are really not don't feel okay with themselves, um, and I think maybe look for relationships to kind of fill that up for them.
Oh yeah. And that is just a mess waiting to happen.
Mhm. And it happens a lot.
Yeah. That's why people like me are still in business. Yeah.
Hey, me too. I work
Yeah,
with their
people.
kids.
Hey, there you go. Right,
Yeah.
because people they use relationships for other than they were what they were intended for.
Yeah.
Kind of
Right.
like these off-label uses,
Hmm.
So wow. Yeah, it does create problems. Now, as you're talking about this,
Hmm.
from the singles perspective, I'm like processing it in my mind
Yeah.
as someone who's been married for over 10 years, let's say, but with the same person now for
Mm-hmm.
closer to like 20 years, now that I think
Right.
about it,
Hmm.
you know? And so this whole idea of independence, it's a little different as a single person or even a dating person
Hmm.
compared to someone who's in a marriage or even a long-term relationship. But
Right.
for the context of this conversation, someone in a marriage, and unless we get clear on that whole independence piece, people do struggle within their marriages about being independent.
Absolutely.
I talk to partners and couples all the time. I mean, I was just on a call this week where this kind of came up. Um, if you're not okay with yourself, just again to borrow your words,
Hmm.
you can wreak havoc within your marriage.
Hmm.
And sometimes it shows up um, like being jealous. You know,
Yeah, those not so fun emotions and things start to come out.
Someone, your wife may want to travel, or your husband may have travel, or going out with the guys, and you're like, wait a minute. And it's funny, we may not even say it outright, but we have these feelings,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
We have these feelings. It just doesn't get to what I'm talking about. We have these, like, we're just not comfortable with it.
That's a good point, because I think about this at, like, um, like the beginning of a relationship, when that's one of the things that you're so attracted to of the other person, is maybe their sense of independence or their interests are different than yours. And then suddenly those things become a liability when you're in a relationship or in a marriage.
Yeah, yeah, no, I understand. And as we become more independent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or self-reliant, I don't know, whatever we want to call it, or less needy of the other person,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, your partner may not like that or appreciate that.
That's true. I feel like maybe some would think that's almost scary. Like you're not able to relate anymore, connect anymore,
Right.
or we're first it's totally different interests, then it's separate bedrooms.
Yeah. And even that, right? Some people, we just kind of jump to the worst case scenario,
Yeah.
and we encourage people, listen, it can be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can enjoy TV, and he or she can enjoy biking, or no TV, or knitting, whatever the case is. You can have separate interests and be independent. Now, again, when we say independent, we don't mean like you just are not with the person, or you don't care about them, you have no regard,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just want to
Right.
throw that out there. That's not what we're saying.
Mm-mm.
This goes to the, I mean, we were saying this before we hit record. Identity.
Right.
It goes to who you are within this relationship.
Right. Your sense of self and what you can add to this relationship.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. you know
I
Go ahead, go ahead.
I feel like as a single person, I feel lucky. I know some people are like, oh, you're single, you'll wait till you meet someone. And I feel really fortunate to be single, because I think about it and I think about the relationships that I've seen, and I've gotten to see, whether it's family, friends, and I see, you know, some of them have never lived by themselves before.
Yeah.
They've gone from college to maybe living with their parents to then getting married, or straight from college into an engagement, and you know cohabitating with someone. And it's interesting to find a woman, or anyone really, that live by themselves for a prolonged period of time without a roommate or anything. And I'll tell
Mm-hmm.
you, it presents its own um, challenges. Even the smallest little things are um, can be difficult, like hanging a picture
Mm-hmm.
into a
Mm-hmm.
cement wall. That's a whole nother thing.
No, you're right 100%. I think one of the best things I did for my marriage was to live alone for, I don't know how long it was exactly that I lived alone,
Hmm.
but just as you said, I was at home, then I had roommates for college, and then I moved out on my own while I was in college.
Hmm.
And I don't know, that year, 2 years, I don't remember how long it was exactly. I learned so much about myself.
So much, and you do get so much downtime too, and you're like, what the heck do I do with all this time, with myself, or what do I, you know yeah, you get to really kind of curate um what you want to do, what you want in your house without having to consider anyone.
Oh, that is a gift.
Yeah.
Listen, that is a gift. And if anyone is in this little, if you're at that point where you're trying to figure out, what what to do, live with someone, live alone,
Hmm.
if you can swing it, And again, I understand everyone's situation is their own, but if you can
Right.
swing it, I would really encourage you to just live alone briefly.
Hmm.
You won't regret it, and it pays dividends.
You will not regret it. I will tell you. I've been living by myself now for, I think, 5 years. Um, and it's fantastic. Actually, I might even be spoiled now because I've had things my
Oh
way for
boy.
so long.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But no, it's nice to be able to kind of share what you've learned. And it's actually really funny because, um, you know, going back to what I was saying about having someone help you with nailing a, picture frame into a cement wall, only then did I know, you need a different drill bit and you need this to go into cement. And then how resourceful you are, because when someone comes along and they're like, gosh, I have a cement wall, I don't know what to do. I'm like, oh, did you get the different drill bit?
Yep. It's called the carbide tip.
There you go. um but yeah, it's just, it's funny because people look at you, especially in for me with my vehicle.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh no, that sounds like, there's a leak in X, Y, and Z. And they're like, how the heck do you know that? I'm like, because I had to learn that.
Right. There's a sense of self-reliance,
Yeah.
self-dependence. Oh,
Yes.
totally.
Yeah, that independence that you learn to foster and become okay with.
Hmm.
You don't have
Hmm.
to rely so heavily on um, other people. You can learn things too yourself.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because once you pair up with someone, um, you cannot ignore, you cannot avoid, even you can't even pretend like they don't exist. Well, because they do.
Yeah.
They do. You want some coffee, there's a second person there. Maybe you don't want coffee and you want tea. So now you're like, oh, and some people enjoy that.
Hmm.
You enjoy considering someone else, but if that's all you're doing, that can be potentially problematic.
Absolutely. And it definitely becomes problematic for sure. And
Yeah.
I think that's why, this topic of identity and having a sense of identity, whether you're trying to foster it or learn it or whatever when you're single, and then, you know, what keeping that identity intact when you're in a relationship.
Mhm, mhm. And even if you're able to foster it as a single person,
Hmm.
it changes when you're in a relationship, when you're in a marriage,
Hmm.
because even with Herdine and I, we've
Hmm.
had to learn how to like assert our own sense of independence within our marriage.
Hmm.
And depending on the season that we're in, it
Hmm.
changes,
Yeah,
you
it's a good
know?
point.
It will change. And the problem a lot of people have is being uncomfortable as the independence changes.
Hmm.
I've heard wives say, I need my husband to have his own thing and be his own person, because if he's not, then it's going to be a problem for me.
Yeah.
And when I poke and I investigate that deeper, she says, I hear lots of things. Men who are not happy with themselves, they can be, jerks or abusive or whatever,
Hmm.
or like mopey. And then now you got to be asking, are they okay, and stroking their egos. So she was like, I don't want to have that problem.
I don't want to take on that emotional strain. I need you to
No,
figure you out.
no,
You need your
in
time.
short, right. I don't want a big baby that I have to, coddle. So,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
we make sure that we're like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? You good? You straight? Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm gonna be out in the woods somewhere hanging out, or I'm gonna go see my brother, or I'm gonna go hang. And you're gonna be with your sister. Great, we're okay with that.
Yeah, and it's just making me think too is when I was in a relationship as well, like it kind of resets you a little bit. Like when you're able to hang with like
Oh
your
yeah.
girls, or you're able to hang out with, like, for you, maybe going into nature, or maybe it's hanging out with a brother or whatever.
Oh, it's the
It,
best.
yeah, and it didn't take that much time. Like maybe you were there for like a few hours and you come back and you have so much to tell your partner, and they're like, wow, you should probably go do that more often because you're like in a really great mood.
Right. You're more fun to be around with.
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely remember doing that, and a former partner telling me that, like, wow, you know, I love that you were able to go do all that stuff and had something to kind of report back with, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's after being able to do that. I know
Mm-hmm.
initially people are like, oh my goodness, who is this person?
Mm-hmm.
And fear can creep in, and then we may be reluctant to be okay with that or allow that.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, I encourage everyone listening, don't be afraid of that.
Right. I'm not sure if you experienced this, Jameson, but when you and Herdine are venturing out into different avenues of interest. But what did you do? Maybe you can tell our listeners of what did you do when that was kind of happening? Was there a challenge? Was there something you had to do within yourself to kind of get it together and say, this is okay?
You know what? That's actually a good question. And I think earlier in our relationship, um, I don't think that I had the maturity to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in a situation where we grew up and around each other. We didn't really meet officially until junior college,
Mm-hmm.
but we went away to junior college around 2003. And then we took the same course of study. We went to grad school together. And then we were married shortly after grad school. And then we had the same job. So we work in the same field. So we're always around each other.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, it dawned on me that we have to introduce some variables here. Otherwise, we won't have anything to talk about because we already know everything about the day,
Right.
you know? And so when that thought came to my mind, I said to myself, okay, I I need, and it isn't that I didn't have other interests.
Mm-hmm.
We had been so used to being together.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of doing things without her, Dean, I had my brothers and homeboys and all that, but she was used to them because my brother's always been around. But making new friends and having the courage, I'll use the courage to explore new interests. I was well aware that Herdine may not be interested in those things.
Mm-hmm.
And what would that then do to the relationship?
Right.
And it took some time. We would talk. Now, what a lot of people do, and I'm guilty of it, I tried to say, hey, babe, come on, let's do this together.
Mm-hmm.
And she would come and not enjoy it, and I'd be miserable, you know? And then,
Yeah.
and it got to the point I said, listen, you don't really enjoy hiking, or you don't really enjoy like whatever this is. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I come because you ask or to be with you. I said, don't do that.
Mm.
Don't do that. If you don't enjoy it, I need you to let me know.
Right.
And then you can do what you want to do. It's okay. Saying it's okay,
Mm.
it's almost like giving each other permission. And
Mm-hmm.
she telling me it's okay, I can go off and play by myself. We had to do that for each other.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, it's nice to hear that, like, you guys had prior to this, created a pretty strong, safe foundation to explore that.
Yeah, that's key. That's
Yeah.
key.
Mm-hmm.
We always come home at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
we don't stay out overnight, or if that's going to be like those things, courtesy, you need that in a relationship. It goes without saying, at least I hope.
Mm-hmm.
If I go away for a weekend, I check in with her, let her know I'm good,
Mm-hmm.
so you need to have that. But once
Mm-hmm.
that's set, you're good, you're
Yeah.
golden.
And I want to kind of segue that, because I think for a single person, we don't have the necessarily accountability to anyone else but ourselves. And
Great point.
and creating that safe and secure relationship within yourself as a single person. And what does that look like? For me, that looks like boundaries. That looks like when you're becoming aware of certain patterns that you're doing, cutting that crap off. Like, I'm not doing that. I know where that could lead. Calling yourself out. I think I shared before in a previous episode that I do a lot of journaling, a lot of reflection, and that creates accountability for myself and my emotions too, to kind of, for me to create that safety and security within the relationship with myself.
As you're speaking, it dawns on me that single people need community more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe this is something we'll figure out how to address or talk, but as a single person, there's nobody to check you on your crap.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
There's no one to say to you, hey, maybe you're drinking too much, or you're spending too much, or maybe you should just go home and go to bed or take a nap. Like, you validate yourself whether you're right or wrong, because there's no one to push back.
Right.
And
there's no one there.
There's nobody there. And when you look in the mirror, you agree with everything you say and do.
Yeah. Or, you create your own little narrative of justification.
Right.
Well, that was a one-off, but it really wasn't.
Right. It's a one-off for the 5th time.
Right.
So the community is important for single people, a community of accountability almost, because without it, single people just fly off the rails.
We can. Yeah, we can. And sometimes it's really nice to do that.
I agree.
But it's also like, okay, that's not a cute look anymore. Like, you got to rein it in, sister. But yeah, that's true. There is a reliance on community, whether it's, checking in with your family or,
right.
Creating those important friendships for you that are like your chosen family to kind of keep you in check a little bit. But yeah, I when I think about independence, I think about that's, as a single person, that's part of fostering that independence is also getting to know you and calling yourself out on your own. Can we say shit?
Oh yeah, I've said it a couple of times already.
Okay, calling you out on your own shit.
Yeah.
Which is also not an easy thing to do. And I totally recognize that. But important work.
Oh yeah. Wow, Mia, this has been good.
I think so. It's been really good. It's given that it's Independence Day, and we had a lot to talk about today about independence as a single person and in a relationship.
Yeah. So for all you single people, you independent people, and married folks, seeking independence, or even in a healthy way, right? Wherever you are, right? Trying to figure out who you are within the context of your relationship or singleness, which, we say in air quotes, because though you're single, you're in a ton of relationships.
You are. That's right.
All right. So let us know what you thought of this episode. Hit us up in social media, the comments. Sharing is caring, guys. Sharing is caring. And if you feel someone else would benefit from this weekend edition, this 4th of July edition, let them know. Bring them over.
Go celebrate your independence today.
Oh, yeah. How about that?
Yeah, celebrate it. Embrace it.
For real. Yeah, I think I'm going to go do that too.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I might bring her Dean with me though.
That's okay.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening. This has been Relationship Renegade Weekend Edition. And hope you guys come back and catch us next time. Take care now.